Good afternoon, everybody. It is really difficult to speak anything after this mesmerizing speech by Swamiji. Still, I'll try to analyze that Ochine Gach from the standpoint of social science. I'll return to his time, the late 19th century Bengal. It is again something maybe repeated because of our professor's lecture. Still, I'll see what were the challenges faced by the colonial Bengali mind due to various factors. First, I shall analyze the factors, and next, how Sri Ramakrishna helped them to accommodate and withstand the challenging factors. How he trained them to accommodate in a changing world. The late 19th century colonial Bengali mind presents a picture of ambivalence. The emergence of Sri Ramakrishna Dev in Dakshineshwar proved to be a solution to their craving for a right way of life to a large extent. It is well known that he was not formally educated, yet his inner eyes, deep knowledge of human psychology counterbalanced his lack of bookish knowledge. My sources of information are Ramakrishna Kathamrita, Lila Prasanga, and the biography by Ramchandra Datta, and a drama Lilamrita by Ramchandra Datta. In his late teens, Gadadhar was entrusted with the responsibility of worship of the Mother Kali in Dakshineshwar temple founded by Rani Rashmani, a reputed lady zamindar residing in Calcutta. The temple itself was a symbol of protest against caste hierarchy, since the lady belonged to the caste of fishermen, that is Jele Koibarto. Being a Kulin Brahman, his acceptance of the job under the Rani was a bold step in a period when the Rani faced a lot of social opposition from the conservative section. Historically, the period was very significant. Calcutta, being the nerve center of eastern India, experienced the first encounter with the West, both politically and socio-economically. Most of the contemporary Calcutta Babus were a mixture of Orthodox Hinduism and liberal Anglicism, while at home most of them were tradition-loving. Outside they spent time mimicking their British boss. We get literary representations of the Babu culture in Lilamrita, a small contribution by Ramchandra Datta. This was also a period of identity crisis of the educated people. Several social forces were working simultaneously, like Brahmoism, Christianity, and Neo-Hinduism were at open conflict with each other. And due to constraint of time, I have to skip. And confrontation with the West led the people to look back to their tradition, and an idea, I quote, of traditional India captured their mind. Simultaneously, effort was made to enrich Indian tradition with the same superior characteristics that were claimed for itself by the West. The Kathamrita, a hagiographic text, was perhaps one of the best of its kind, provided the reader with the essence of Eastern and Western philosophical thoughts. Sri Ramakrishna analyzed difficult theoretical propositions in a simple style, which undoubtedly mesmerized the listener and later on the reader as well. The fact that, despite no formal bookish education, he showed proficient knowledge of applied philosophy coming from both Eastern and Western school of thought pointed to the rich existence of Indian traditional perspective. Above all, one cannot point at any external source of his great knowledge except meager rural education and active participation in cultural performances. The efflorescence of his knowledge was spontaneous, and one cannot but describe the phenomena as divine or supernatural. During the 19th century, India, traditionally a country of multiple religious cultures, confronted serious challenges from various sectors. The predominant trend of thought was exercised with the question of religion. Earlier, Ram Mohan Roy, the father of comparative religions, tried to unify India, to introduce a uniform religion known as Nirakara Brahma that is known to all. However, only people with higher intellectual receptibility could assimilate the thoughts. Sri Ramakrishna solved the religious dilemma in a simple manner and argued in favor of the omnipresence of God. He also explained the inner logic of the difference in the style of worship. He told that if the God is worshipped in form of the mother, the dearest of all, the devotee will get him and feel his presence. No formal worship is needed for his blessings. Only work without expectations can make the mind clear, and love for God emerges in a clean mind. He explained the love for God as a combination of three attachments, namely that of the worldly person on his wealth, that of the mother on her child, and that of the wife on her husband. A difficult proposition of how to realize God was easily solved by him with the help of easy examples. Regarding meditation, he advised to meditate in mind, corner of the room and forest, that is secluded place, and make a continuous mental exercise of determination of false and truth. This simple explanation of religion, a difficult genre of philosophical expositions and theories, was the mystery of his great popularity. During the years of post-revolt reactions, Indian bitterness had to negotiate the policy of racial discrimination. Saville Ovid referred to an increasing number of youths for whom life seemed hard and difficult. In spite of English education, the ideas and customs of ages had been shaken. There was desire for change, and he continuously faced the impatient questions by Western educated young people. He answered calmly and with great confidence. There was desire for change and impatience of the present, a growing doctrine that the old times were better than the new. He focused on traditional India with its value system in front of them. Numerous gurus upheld ancient Indian heritage. However, the unprecedented element in his approach was that he showed the method of reinterpretation of traditional knowledge in the changing environment of the late 19th century, and simultaneously the way of internalizing the West, because it was next to impossible to discard Western impact in the daily life of the people. In Bengal, the Brahmin Kayastha dominated educated milieu clamored against racist colonial policy. It is true that he never uttered political words, yet he never supported timidity. In this context, we may refer to his story of the snake and the sadhu, which was politically correct and definitely showed a way out to the milieu who came to him for suitable advice in a challenging situation. A social scientist observed that his, I quote, simple words lent strength to the minds of many, and in the process silently unleashed a feeling that if a nation builds up its strength from within, it could meet squarely all its problems, including political bondage. The period also witnessed the emergence of communalism, a grave challenge in front of the nation. Contemporary writings show unmistakable traits of anti-Islamic psychology of the average educated Hindus. To them, the British were deliverers from barbarous Muslim rule. Several writings of the post-revolt period show a trend to create an invader-invaded psyche and deprive the Muslims of their rightful place in India's plural cultural framework. The educated few Muslims faced twin challenges from Western educated Hindu elite and British people as well, and this precipitated a search for a separate identity among them. Sri Ramakrishna easily solved the question of communal animosity, especially in religion, because he earnestly believed in the genuineness of all religions. On one occasion, he commented that the man can reach God via many ways. All religions are true. If you say that their religion has got many limitations, then I will say that every religion has fault. All the children are equal to the Father, may they not call him in the same fashion. If water is described in different names, does the quality change? Only the God is described in different names. In this context, we may again refer to Ram Mohan, who studied the scriptures of all religions and discovered the universality of monotheism. However, Sri Ramakrishna practiced all religions and attained the same truth in his own life. This was an unique proposition during a period when communal question was fast assuming a strong base in people's mind. Equally problematic was the question of women's social status in a changing scenario. The arrangements for their education were made and necessary enactments ensuring their right to live after widowhood, emancipation from childhood marriage, polygamy were made. However, these arrangements were never enough to ensure their better living, social honor, and sparked off bitter debates. The nationalist discourse on women were constructed by which the image of the Hindu woman fully controlled by Shastric injunctions emerged. In this discourse, the home or Antapura asserted special significance as the site of the spiritual culture of the East. The inhabitants of the home are imagined as the embodiment of pure spiritual energy. Accommodation of the Western impact was to be made within the indigenous model. In this arena of glorified Swadeshi womanhood, the image of the mother was focused. She was represented both as the family member and the divine mother, sometimes identified with Deshmata in the nationalist writings. Sri Ramakrishna categorized the nature of women into Vidya and Avidya, while the former enriches men with devotion, compassion, knowledge, love, and leads towards God. Later, the latter allures man with negative qualities and leads towards Kamini and Kanchana. To him, all women were personifications of Shakti or energy. He, being a practical person, did not rule out the existence of negative traits of human character and showed the process to overcome the weakness. Some of his disciples were challenged by various vices of character. He described the true contents of a female body and asked the reason of infatuation towards these only elements. To him, the implication of marriage was not only procreation but leading of a honest conjugal life. He was encircled by a service group working under foreign masters. He did not favor the time-bound lifestyle of these people, yet when some of his disciples asked whether earning stands in the way of religious life, he answered that honest earning should be made in order to look after the family. However, the aim should be to serve the God. Therefore, like average saints, he was not in favor of abandonment of family, rather he showed the ways for a better lifestyle. His unique description may be referred to in this context. One should feel himself like the maidservant of a rich household who, despite nurturing the master's children, always remains attached to her own children and family staying in remote village. The period also coincided with the fashion of stigmatizing the Bengalis as a non-martial race and stigma of alleged effeminacy. It reached great height with Bishop Heber's description of the Bengalis since 1770 and James Mill's discovery of their feminine softness. The economic and geographical background of the decline of health in Bengal and widespread circulation of the concept of effeminacy of the Bengali Babu was also discussed at length. In response, the heroic tradition of the epics, the courage of medieval Hindu heroes strengthened the popular feeling of glorious heritage. In the sayings of Ramakrishna, the personification of multiple qualities, one may find an unlimited source of energy. He infused self-confidence among the people. Despite all sorts of disabilities facing them, he continued to energize them by way of drawing analogies from daily life and extended practical solutions to them. He did not preach or impose his observations, rather express his views on problems faced by a late 19th centurian Bengali Babu. His simple sayings in colloquial Bengali, rational outlook, broadness of mind, superstition-free personality could easily attract people from all walks of life. A social scientist described the trend of thoughts unleashed from his teachings as Ramakrishnayana. His discussions on the subjects posing challenge in front of the contemporary educated middle class remains relevant till date still, since the problems are not eradicated, rather appeared with more strength and eroding at the people's life every day. Thank you.